Ecosystems are probably one of the most powerful tools within Vue. So let's go ahead and take a look at that right now. I'm going to load in a standard terrain to start out with, and just double click on our material, and we can go ahead and just change this to an ecosystem. And now we have our default, which is underneath, and then our ecosystem layer, which is on top of that. So if we want to edit this layer, we can go ahead and load something in for that, but we're going to be mostly taking a look at our ecosystem. Now, in order to add whatever we want to our ecosystem, we need to go to our General tab and click Add. And now we have the ability to add rocks, plants, or objects, which means we could populate any number of objects. We could create buildings and create a huge city, different farms, and with buildings like that, and having barns and cottage houses and flowers and things like that when we combine everything together. I'm going to go ahead and select Plant right now. And we can view all of our different available plants that come with Vue. And right now I'm just going to select just a random one. It doesn't really matter. We can select our dry weeds right now and click OK. And now, right now, nothing comes up until we hit populate. So let's go ahead and hit populate. And now we can see we have some plants showing up on our object. And also, if we want to see these a little bit better quality, I'm going to select full quality near camera. And that way we can see these objects, what they're actually going to look like within our camera view. And then far away outside of our 20 meters, they are going to be that billboard shape. But one thing we want to do is increase our density, hit populate, and now we have a more dense coverage of our plant that we have in here. We can also adjust the scaling and orientation, so we can make this a little bit larger, a little bit smaller, outside of what we have for our actual scale. What we also have is our presence right next to it, which when we're using multiple layers, let's go ahead and add another plant. I'm going to just add this one right here. We can decrease its presence on this one, hit populate, and now we end up with more of our dry weeds than we do of our other plants because of our presence. So we can adjust that as well. We can also adjust its scale. And then, of course, whether or not we want the full quality in our camera. And what we can also do is create multiple ecosystem layers. So I'm going to add another layer, go to default, change that into an ecosystem. And now I can add another plant to this, and we'll select our cactus. And now we also have some new options here, which is affinity with layer and repulsion from layer. And this will allow us to blend closer to previous layers. So in other words, do we want these cactuses to populate closer to our other objects or more far away? And that's what these two are for. And we're going to go back to density now, right after we populate this. And we can see all of our cactuses in there. And we have quite an interesting looking ecosystem right now. But under density, we also have decay and airborne objects. So if we have a sphere in the scene or any other object in the scene right next to this ecosystem or intersecting with the object, we can decay near those foreign objects, or even water will work as that, or ground planes. And that way, your ecosystem will not populate when it's close to those other objects. And now we also have our other tab. We'll go back to scaling orientation. And we can adjust our variable scaling with a function. We also have filters for that. And we have a few other different options here where we can select the direction from the surface and then how uniform we want the proportions to be. So we could change the size variation if we want certain plants to be taller than others and we want a little more variation in there. We can up that a little. We can also change the color. So if we do not want our cactus to be green, we can go ahead and change its overall color. And we can also change its color at lower densities. So we have some more options for that. And then, of course, variable color, which will allow us to change function and edit filters. And then we have our environment tab, which is a lot more extra features. And the best way to really see how these work is just kind of play around with your ecosystems and see what ends up turning out the best. And one of the really nice things about ecosystems is they will work on any object within Vue as long as it's not an infinite plane. So if we go ahead and try to add an ecosystem to our ground, that won't work. Or if we try to add it to a water plane, that won't work. So any of the infinite planes will not be able to populate ecosystems. So we have to make sure we're using that on terrains, standard objects, or imported objects from other software programs. And if you'd like to take a look at some of the ecosystems that come with Vue, what we can do is just load in a standard terrain or any other object, and then we're going to select to load a material, and we have all of these different ecosystems available currently already saved within Vue. And of course, you can download more or create your own. But a good way to really learn how these ecosystems work is to just load in some of the ones that come with it. And if we load one in, it's going to ask us if we'd like to automatically populate it. I'm just going to click yes. And now we have an ecosystem automatically on this object. And we can take a look at it and see exactly what's creating this ecosystem, the different options, and just kind of go through and reverse engineer to kind of take a look and see how they were created. It's probably one of the best ways to really, really get in depth and learn how everything is created.